Hey, how you doing? This is John, and welcome to John's Long Box. Today we're going to look at Planetary #1. This is by Warren Ellis and John Cassidy. I'm surprised it took me this long to showcase this comic because I absolutely love this comic. It's one of my favorite comics of all time. What's it about? Well, we'll see. We'll see when we talk about it. But this is by Wildstorm, which was bought out by DC Comics, so it, in a roundabout way, is a DC comic. Which begs the question: can DC bring these characters back? Here we got Chiquita Wagner. She's super strong, super invulnerable. So she's like a like a female Superman, but she can't fly, but she can jump and everything. This is the drummer. He has the most plot-like powers, meaning like his powers to me are a little bit undefined, so therefore he's a little bit too powerful. But he's the drummer, so he can see all types of rhythms. And with his drumsticks, he could type out all types of rhythms. So he could like tap out binary code. He could control computers. And then later on, we found out that he's also a magician. Like that magic is just vibrations and patterns of another sort. Oh, there you go. I liked it, but to me, he was a little bit of. He's my least favorite by far because that type of power is just so undefined. But she's straightforward, super strong, super invulnerable. And this is Elijah Snow. He's the main character. Elijah Snow, he is Mr. Snow. And what is Mr. Snow? He controls like ice powers, but it's not so much ice powers. He has like heat subtraction, as he calls it. So he could move and manipulate heat, causing extreme cold. But he can't make heat. He just manipulates heat. So if there's extreme heat in an area, he could move it, remove it. So he can't he could take heat from two different areas and combine them and make things warmer, but it's not like he can project fire or anything. It's mostly he could remove and manipulate heat as creating like near absolute zero colds. It's I don't know. It's basically ice powers, but it's subtly different, and I like the way they explain it. Okay, so let's get back to this issue. So this is #1. I forget exactly what year it came out, but at this point, Warren Ellis was a rock star. I was and still am a Warren Ellis fanboy, and I'll talk about the Warren Ellis kerfuffle at the end of this comic. But right now, Warren Ellis was just going full bore with the Authority. Look at this: Warren Ellis, Brian Hitch, Paul Neary. How could you not want this comic? This is a phenomenal comic. I showcased Authority when I first started, and I don't think anybody watched the video. So here we have. There's no indicia or credits yet, so we'll check that out when it shows up. But comic starts in a diner in the desert. We have Mr. Snow. Elijah Snow just hanging out in the diner, and we got waitress, and she's just like, what are you doing? We're looking for him. And look at this phenomenal artwork. So she's recruiting Elijah Snow for her team. He's like, we need you. He's like, what do you mean you need me? He's explain why I shouldn't kill you right now. Like, he's vastly confident in his powers. I know it's just ice powers, but it is, heat is a fundamental force in the universe. And heat is the vibrations of molecules. So you can see how they explore this power. And she's sitting down and she's recruiting him. And why is that a big deal? Because he's like a lost soul at this point. He's just lost, confused, doesn't know his way. And she's offering him not a path to salvation. I don't think he even needs a path to salvation, but he needs a mission, a point. Human being. I forget who said it. Get some delicious Tim Hortons coffee. I forget who said it, but I absolutely agree that human beings are a species that need to be building, need to be moving. Now, I'm not talking about building houses, although that is an excellent thing to do. They need to be creating in some certain way. And I think people that just sit around and watch TV stagnate and die. Like, write, build something, do art, do something, even home repairs, just something to get you off the couch. Human beings need that. And right now, Elijah Snow does not have that. So she's giving him that purpose in life. And here we are, Planetary, 1999. All right. The helicopter comes out, picks him up. And, so we're learning. This is such a brilliant trick that to the point where it's a trope that it works so well. Sometimes I even forget it's a trope, but the older, experienced people telling the rookie guy all the information because the rookie guy is stating it for the audience. So we're learning things because Elijah Snow needs to know it. And I forget that that's like a cliche or a trope or however you want to describe it, because it is necessary and it works and it's flawless. Have a new person enter the team, and then we, the audience, learn as they learn. It works so well. So here he's getting cleaned up. Look at him. You can tell he's a little older, and she's checking him out like, hey, look at you. You look handsome. Good for you. And we got this Castlevania ad, which is bizarre, beating, it's a video game, Castlevania. And as far as I know, Warren Ellis is the writer on the Castlevania Netflix show, which I haven't watched yet. And just yesterday, my friend Jimmy told me I need to watch it. So now she's going to introduce him to the rest of the team. And who's the rest of the team? The drummer. So now the 3 Planetary members are hanging out. He's drinking soda and beer. He's the slacker character. He's the old man character. She's like in the middle, little like temper. He throws a bottle, he catches it. He's like, oh, okay. Now I see why you got some merit to it. So why should they let Mr. Snow into their team? And as why do we need you? What do you have to offer? So, just like everything, the even though he's younger, he's been in the team longer. So busted his chops. Initiation, you know what I mean? Respect is earned, not given. So, that's just normal. I don't want to say tough guy behavior. It's normal human behavior. Even if you have a nerd group, the newest guy who joins the nerd group, they still have to earn their nerd cred. And I get so mad when people, like, forget it. I was gonna say, like, if a guy enters a nerd group, that guy gets tested. What do you know? Who's the Fantastic Four? What are the villains? What are their powers? Who created them? What happened in issue 50? Blah, blah, blah. Nobody bats an eye at that. But a girl enters the group and you ask the questions. Oh, you're gatekeeping. No, we're nerd keeping. It doesn't matter. Girls are going to get their chops busted. Prove it. You don't just get a pass because you're a girl. Although boobies do have magic power. All right, so they're going off on this mission. And they're going like into this harsh environment, and like, what are we gonna do? Like, and he's just drumming, and he's like, "You're driving me crazy with the drumming." Yes, I would. And he just looks at, what does Chiquita do? She just jumps. So this is the first display of her powers. Look at it. She lands. She makes a crater. He climbs down on the rope. And I always like this ad, Battle Tanks. I always like this ad. I don't know why. Never played the game, but I like the ad. And what are they doing? They're exploring this cave. This cave is somewhere in like the North Baltic Sea near Azkaban. For those of you who are Harry Potter fans, it's in the same like harsh environments as Azkaban, and they're exploring these artifacts. The Vulcanus, Raven God. Vulcanus, the Raven God. So they see the skeleton of the Raven God. What does that say? I can't even read it. Can you read that, ladies and gentlemen? I can't read it. But the murder kernels. That one I knew. See, I can't read these, but I know if you look them up. And then this guy pulls a gun on him. And he says, I'm Axel Brass. You damn well better be the good guys. And she's like, please, your guns are useless. And what's he doing? This snowflake is just like, think of it as like almost like a flickering hologram, and so she's like, we're here to help you, we're the good guys. And look, he's just emaciated. And now he's going and telling his story. Now, who's Axel Brass? Axel Brass is Doc Savage. Doc Savage is the Man of Bronze. He's Axel Brass. So that's one of the things that Planetary is doing. It's not just exploring the characters, although the characters are wonderful. It's exploring superheroes, the whole genre of superheroes. Now, I know that sounds trite right now, but I just want to point out it's exploring the concept of superheroes. It's not just deconstructing. First off, Warren Ellis is a tremendous writer, an amazing talent. Second off, this is a grand story of the whole world. To me, it works better as its own little universe. It doesn't really interact with Wildstorm as a whole, and except for one, I don't even know if it's out of continuity team up with Batman. It kind of stays away from DC. So I think it works best like this. So what we're finding out now is that the Planetary, which I never understood the name, but it has a planetary scope, they are the archaeologists of the secret history of the 20th century. So the 20th century being when superheroes became public, became common, became like everyday things. What happened? You know, at 1901, you didn't really have too many superheroes, and now we're lousy with superheroes. What happened in the 20th century? And that's the whole purview of this comic. So now, of course, the first issue, we got to talk about, you know, if you're going to explore superheroes and what superheroes mean, you start with Doc Savage, and they can't, you know, this is their Doc. Warren Ellis's version, Axel Brass, just brilliant, just brilliant. So now he's meeting with his super team, and that's Lord. I think they say their names here. This is where, but they all have names. But this is like Mr. Bigley, the aviator trope character from the 40s. This is Mr. Hark, who's the Fu Manchu trope. This is Lord Greystone, Lord Blackstone rather, who's Tarzan. This is like the Flash Gordon, and I forget who that's supposed to be. But all of these great literary characters, kind of like a League of Extraordinary Gentlemen, are getting together to discuss things, and they're being assembled by Axel Brass. And you know, this is the, oh yeah, okay, so I think they're introducing him over here, but I already introduced him. And then this is the Spider. And who's the Spider? Well, that's the Shadow. So it's, you know, all the pulp heroes are getting together to talk. We always have serious. And what do they do? They're trying to figure out what to do. So why do they need to figure this out? Because they built this computer. All of them all together have built this snowflake. And what is this snowflake? It maps out the multiverse. I'm making it simpler. Warren Ellis is smarter than me, you know. And I don't know if all this he explains like where all of these theories and ideas come from in articles and in letters pages, and that's just as fascinating as the comic. I'll take them at face value, and even if it's not based on truth, but I do think it's based on actual theories and things like that. Even if it's not, it's based on comic book logic. So this computer maps out the whatever 900 something dimensions of the multiverse, and it maps them all. And because it maps them all, and because of the quantum uncertainty and observations, you could basically influence it and pretty much put your own code into the multiverse. So how powerful is that? So that they're looking at all the streams, and now do they trust each other with this much power? Like, do you trust the guy who's the Fu Manchu analog? You know, Tarzan, I trust. Tarzan was a good guy. You know, Doc Savage was arrogant, but I trust him. But, you know, do I trust the Shadow with this much power? Do I trust, you know, like I said, Fu Manchu with this much power? I don't know. So that's going on. Ultimate power. So he's just going on and explaining that they're observing all you know, these worlds and creation and destruction, and the unthinkable happens. So now they all decide that they're going to get together and they're going to protect the world from this computer. They don't want to destroy it. You know, they want it. Who built it? I said that they built it, but they didn't build it. They activated it. I spoke wrong. So who built it? Who designed it? Why? What happened? And then we get a team of superheroes from another multiverse, well, not another multiverse, from another universe appear. And do they look familiar? They should. It's basically Superman, Wonder Woman, Martian Manhunter, Batman, Green Lantern, the Flash, and I think that's Martian Manhunter. That might be, oh no, that's Aquaman. So it's a Justice League analog. They're evil, and they make no bones about it that this is supposed to be the crime syndicate from Earth 3. As they got destroyed, they actually survived and fled and came here, you know, but they made them legally distinct. How cool is that? How cool is that? So now this battle goes on. So this is, you know, Doc Brass and the Shadow and all the pulp heroes versus the superheroes, the Justice League. Don't you want that? I want that. That's what comic books are all about. You know, they're all fighting, and the battle just caused this destruction. They're all dead. And look at, he's been beaten up, and he's been sitting here because this is set in 1999. This is set in like real time. He's been sitting here just slowly starving, protecting it. And he's just like, you know, are you here to help? And what they do is they take him away for treatment. And now the Planetary, they're taking over responsibility of protection of the snowflake. So there you go. And here's the credits. Warren Ellis, writer. John Caston. This art is phenomenal art. Excellent art. Laura Dupre, I just love the colors. I'm sorry to say, but I don't really know much about Bill O'Neill. And editor John Lyman, is that the same guy who's a writer now? You know, Planetary, created by Warren Ellis and John Caston. And again, no indicia here. Oh, but it's 1999. So now he's realized, okay, this is something I could do. This is something I could sink my teeth in, and I could stay part of this team. So he joins. And here we got more Wildstorm news. Wildcats. This was a great... I know, if you watch my channel for a while, you know that I said a million times that I wasn't a big fan of early Image. And I distinctly say early Image, because at this period of Image, I make no bones about it, it's probably the best superhero comic book company right now. Right now is putting out the best product. Wildcats was phenomenal. Planetary was phenomenal. Supreme, oh my God, so I got to show those Supreme comics. Supreme to me was just a goofy, angry, cool, hip, extreme Superman, but it evolved into a phenomenal comic. Wildcats, what else did... Oh, The Authority, duh. Just great comics. Now, let me talk about this for a second. So, there's a team, and there's a string. So they talk about like the pulp heroes. They go into, and they introduce like different versions, you know, the Planetary versions of all the superheroes and all the tropes, and they explain them. There's like what would happen if these superheroes were really existed in a slightly different universe. So, you know, a little bit more realistic universe. You know, I don't want to spoil, but the things they do with like the real Superman, the real Green Lantern, the real Captain Marvel, you know, Billy Batson. It I don't know. It's twisted, and at this point, I make no bones about it. I was full on in my pretentious artsy-fartsy stage going on at this point. I don't think I started to leave that stage until I was working full-time in a real 9-to-5 job. Then I became a more grounded, normal person. But at this point, I love this high artsy concept stuff. I still love it. This comic, 27 issues. It went on a long hiatus because I think of health issues with Warren Ellis, and then I think because of those health issues, John Cassidy took over other work because he needs to pay bills. As I take another sip of coffee, and by the time he was finished with those commitments, the comic was on like a couple of year hiatus. So a couple of things I want to talk about. There's a common thread going through who is the third man. This Planetary team is always 3 people, and his immediate predecessor was Ambrose Chase, whose power was he could manipulate reality. And when he was killed, they needed a third man, and then the third man founded or set up these things in motion, and then left. And then they needed to recruit a new third man. So he's always like, who is the third man? Who am I working for? You know, a lot of that, like Prisoner, who is number 1. So that's a theme going through the comic. Another theme is the concept of these century babies, as they call them. In January 1st, first minute of the new century, a whole bunch of babies were born. And those babies had, like, their age stopped at around age 19, and they were going to die at the last minute of the last, so, you know, December 31st, 11:59, they were going to die. So they knew that they were going to live to be exactly 100 years. And they had powers. Elijah Snow is a century baby. If you read The Authority, Jenny Sparks was a century baby. She's the spirit of the 19th century. Axel Brass was a century baby. So they're metahuman. They have superpowers. For the most part, they're benevolent. Like they're and every century has a century baby, according to Planetary and the Authority, and they're like tasked to like be guardians of the century that they're born into. It's a pretty interesting concept. I really like that. As far as I know, I don't think there was any evil century babies, but I could be wrong. Then in the Authority, Jenny Quantum died. Jenny Sparks died, and Jenny Quantum was born. And Apollo and the Midnighter adopted her, and they're raising her. Although now she's 23 years old, you know, because it was set in real time. So Elijah is 99 years old. He knows he's going to die soon. he's lived 100 years at this point. So he's by far the most experienced of these people, but he's new to the organization. And so on and so forth. I got to say, this comic is one of the most influential comic books on me, as my role-playing games, as far as like writing scripts for comics. I really like it. It's a perfect blend of superheroes, occult, investigation. It's so good. There's a hardcover compendium, and I think there's a softcover compendium of all 27 issues. If I know that a lot of people don't like the floppies anymore. I particularly like the floppies, although I did get the hardcover just because I like this comic so much. I don't know, I'm crazy. I can't recommend it enough. It is a phenomenal comic. It's one of my favorites. I don't know, I could rant and rave enough. Now, let's talk about the Warren Ellis kerfuffle. I talked about it in another video. Now, Warren Ellis is not the most attractive of men. He, and coming from me, that's one of the least attractive of men. Whatever. I consider the source. But I think yesterday's video I talked about message boards. Around this time, around 1990 to I'm going to say until Twitter, whenever Twitter debuted, message boards were the thing. If you were into if you were a fan of comics, you got into message boards. So you would go to DC Comics, Wildstorm, and there'd be Planetary, and there's a whole bunch of threads and who's your favorite character, this, who would win in a fight, this. And Warren Ellis had all the big writers and all the big artists had their own message board. I remember I was a member of Jeff Johns message board for a while. I don't think I was ever on the Warren Ellis message board, but in the Warren Ellis message board, he was king. John Byrne still has his going up. It's called John Byrne Robotics. I never joined it because I kind of don't like the way it's run, but that's neither here nor there. But the Warren Ellis message board, he used to joke around that it was my cult. Join my cult. I'm your cult leader. I'm your charismatic cult leader. And he would openly solicit for the females to give him boob pics, and he would call them his cult things. And if we ever met up, you would pay your dues by having sex with them. And was it a joke? I don't know. But women were sending him boob pics. And supposedly when he was traveling around, he would meet up with these girls. And they would hook up while he was in the convention. So, I don't know, none of these girls were underage, and none of these girls said assault or anything like that. It was all mutual, playful, kind of gross fun, between consenting adults. So Warren Ellis, who was this chubby, I don't know, your boy Zach from Diversity Comics always describes him as looking like a boiled egg. Not the most flattering description, but also not too inaccurate, And then Warren Ellis would be like, yeah, I'll coach your writing. I'll use my influence to get you whatever. So I don't know. I find it to be no different than rock and roll groupie girls. And then around 2016, all of these girls from the message boards started arriving and saying, we're victims of Warren Ellis. And there's a whole website of victims of Warren Ellis. So these girls, they got loved and left, and they realized they're not writers, they don't have careers or whatever, I don't know. But now, and they're all saying he hypnotized me, he used he seduced me, he promised me this, but not one of them ever says rape, assault, not one of them is underaged, so buyer beware is the way I look at it. You whatever, you got caught up in his talent, and he is an amazing talent, amazing writer, I don't know. And what I think is disgusting is I can't even think of her name now, but the woman who does she's a female reporter. She was a member of the message board, and she used to write the Warren Ellis message boards are a good place to go if you ignore all the sluts. Why can't I think of her name? I'll put it in a comment later on. But she's still on Twitter talking about her comic journalism and everything. And she was one of the people heralding the story of Warren Ellis and this, sexual misconduct. She and she was there, and now she's playing all innocent. Now, I don't know if she ever fooled around with Warren Ellis or whatever, but you were there, you knew what was going on. Anyway. you know, I just find the whole thing kind of gross. It's no different than Motley Crue having their groupie girls, whatever. So comic book groupie girls, whatever. And then they get older and they regret the decision. You know, Warren didn't do anything wrong. I'm not, Warren took advantage of starstruck girls. Is it a crime? No. Is it gross? Kinda, but whatever. None of them were underage, and none of them made any illegal accusations toward him. But they got him canceled. He doesn't write comics anymore. When the Castlevania Netflix show was up for renegotiating his contract, all of a sudden everybody came out, and then people had to like force him to issue an apology. For what? For what? For what? For being gross? Okay, yeah, I'm gross too. But whatever. I'll apologize. Right now, when I get a comic book going and I'm kickstarting it, I apologize in advance for being gross. I don't know, but I just find the whole thing to be so. He's one of those cancel culture people that I think finally people have had enough of. But I don't think he did anything wrong other than being a gross slob. But you know what? We're all gross slobs. So I talked a little too long, said things I probably shouldn't say, but I will say this is one of my favorite comic books. One of my favorite comic books. Every issue is a gem. 27 issues of pure brilliance. Wonderful art, wonderful color, and above all, wonderful writing. I've said this before, and the more I say it, the more I realize it's the truth. Good art will get me to look at a comic. Good writing will get me to stay with a comic. And this is some of the best comic book writing ever. If you are a fan of comics, like a deep lore fan of comics, this is the comic book for you. Okay? So thanks a lot for your time, and I will see you tomorrow with Sunday Comics. I have no idea what I'm going to be doing yet, but I will be doing something. Bye-bye.